After a relatively quiet day at Watkins Glen, the real fireworks didn't happen on the track. They happened after the race, because while most drivers were already heading to the garage, Bubba Wallace was standing on pit road in a heated face-to-face exchange with Christopher Bell, and suddenly NASCAR fans were trying to figure out what exactly just exploded between two Toyota teammates. And honestly, that moment may have revealed something much bigger than one bad conversation, because frustration inside the Cup garage is starting to boil over. The race itself at Go Bowling at the Glen wasn't supposed to become a controversy-filled weekend for Wallace. At one point, the number 23 car actually looked competitive enough to salvage a decent finish. He picked up a stage point, stayed within striking distance, and appeared positioned for a respectable result late in the race. Then everything unraveled. Late race contact from Hunter Nemechek set Wallace spinning, destroyed his momentum, and buried him deep in the field. Instead of fighting for a strong finish, Wallace crossed the line in 29th place. Bell didn't exactly have a great afternoon either. He finished 21st. But the results almost became irrelevant once cameras caught the two drivers talking after the checkered flag. And this wasn't a casual conversation. Wallace was visibly upset, animated, pointing, talking with intensity. Bell, meanwhile, looked calm and measured through most of the exchange. That contrast is exactly why the moment immediately exploded online, because fans started asking the obvious question, what was Bubba Wallace really upset about? At first, people assumed it had something to do with Bell directly. Others believed Wallace was still furious over the earlier contact involving Nemechek and simply venting frustration after another difficult race weekend. And that's where this story actually becomes more interesting than the confrontation itself. This wasn't just about one incident. This was about pressure. Right now, every race matters for drivers trying to stay relevant in the playoff picture. And for Wallace specifically, inconsistencies become the biggest problem surrounding his season. One strong run gets followed by a disappointing finish. Momentum disappears almost instantly. And when that starts happening repeatedly, emotions build up fast inside a race team. That's what Sunday looked like. Not just anger. Accumulated frustration. Because from a strategy standpoint, the number 23 team actually wasn't in terrible shape late in the race. Like several teams at Watkins Glen, they were trying to survive on fuel strategy while protecting older tires. That meant Wallace was already vulnerable during the closing laps, while faster cars on fresher tires started charging through the field. Then came the contact, and once that happens at a technical road course like Watkins Glen, your day is basically finished. Now here's where the bigger NASCAR conversation begins. Moments like this are becoming increasingly common because modern Cup racing creates constant tension between teammates, manufacturers, and alliance partners. Remember, Wallace and Bell may drive for different organizations, but both are connected through Toyota's Racing Alliance structure. That matters, because when drivers within the same manufacturer ecosystem start getting frustrated with each other publicly, teams notice it immediately. Manufacturers invest heavily in cooperation, shared data, shared setups, shared strategy discussions. The last thing they want is emotional conflicts creating division between drivers who are supposed to help each other compete against Chevrolet and Ford. That's why Bell's reaction stood out. He didn't escalate things. He stayed controlled. Almost like he understood the moment wasn't worth making worse publicly. That's veteran awareness, and honestly, it probably prevented this situation from becoming a much bigger story heading into next weekend. Still, NASCAR fans immediately split into predictable camps online. Some viewers defended Wallace completely. They saw a driver who had another promising run ruined late and finally reached a breaking point emotionally. Others criticized him for appearing frustrated after another disappointing finish, arguing that emotional reactions are becoming too common around the number 23 team. And whether people love Wallace or criticize him, there's one reality nobody can deny. He remains one of the most talked about personalities in NASCAR. Every reaction becomes a headline. Every confrontation becomes debate fuel. Every emotional moment spreads across social media instantly. That kind of visibility creates pressure too, because drivers know every gesture is being analyzed in real time now. Now let's get to the deeper racing impact here. The biggest concern for Wallace moving forward isn't this confrontation, it's the pattern. When strong runs continue turning into bad finishes, confidence inside a team starts taking hits little by little, not dramatically, quietly. Pit calls become second-guessed. Aggression changes. Drivers start forcing situations instead of letting races come naturally. That's the danger zone for any playoff caliber team. And with the season moving deeper into critical territory, the margin for wasted weekends is disappearing quickly. For Bell, though, this situation probably changes very little. Christopher Bell has built a reputation as one of the calmer, more disciplined personalities in the garage. Even when situations get tense, he rarely lets emotions control the public moment. That steadiness is one reason many people inside NASCAR view him as a legitimate long-term championship contender. So now the question becomes, does this situation fade away immediately? Or is this another sign that frustrations are quietly building behind the scenes inside Toyota's driver camp? Because if results continue slipping for certain teams, small moments can suddenly become much bigger ones later in the season. Looking ahead, there are really two possible outcomes here. Best case scenario, this turns into nothing more than a heated post-race discussion after a frustrating afternoon. Wallace resets mentally, the number 23 team regains momentum, and both drivers move on without any lingering tension. That's probably the most likely outcome, but the worst case scenario is more complicated. If poor finishes continue stacking up, frustration can start affecting decision-making on the track. Drivers become less patient. Teams become more aggressive strategically, and suddenly minor disagreements evolve into recurring garage drama. That's when seasons can spiral. And in modern NASCAR, emotional control matters almost as much as raw speed. Because talent alone doesn't survive the playoff grind. Composure does. So now the big question is this. Was Bubba Wallace simply blowing off steam after another brutal finish, or did Watkins Glen expose deeper frustration building inside the Toyota camp? Drop your take in the comment, and if you're new to SportsWire USA, subscribe for more NASCAR analysis, breaking stories, and inside the garage coverage every week.